W420radionetwork.com.
Well, much is changing in the cannabis world, locally, nationally, and globally. And we're joined now by Brent Johnson, the CEO of the Hoban Law Group, the leading global law firm focusing exclusively on the cannabis industry. And Brent, I know you're based in Colorado, where it was the first state to make recreational marijuana legal. And in California, 2 years ago, joined the party, if you will. But it's an ever-changing terrain and domain, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, obviously, Colorado was one of the leaders in the space. California's trying to evolve. It's had its challenges, but I mean, there's obviously over 30 states now that have it legal, either medical and or rec. Mm-hmm. We're headquartered in Denver, but we have about 50 attorneys. We cover about 28 states. We're also in Latin America and start to expand in Europe. So yeah, we have attorneys on the ground in all these states, and each state has its own issues, and it's evolving in its own way. One thing that's unique about us is we're also heavily focused on hemp. And obviously now that hemp is federally legal, we're in a great position to advise clients, not just on the marijuana, but also on the hemp side.
Yeah, and many people believe that with hemp becoming legal nationally, it may be a prelude to the legalization of cannabis. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's still going to be a while. The hemp's a much easier sell because it doesn't get you high. Right, and it also has arguably 30,000 plus industrial uses. I mean, from bottles to batteries to houses to animal beds to feed, and so it's much easier to make that sell. Obviously, that's why it's probably passed at the federal level. And now we have states adopting their plans under the new USDA rules, and so that's definitely much easier sell. I mean, there's still going to be challenges on the marijuana side. We don't expect full legalization really anytime soon. Obviously, with the election coming up, we'll kind of see how that all plays out. But we're at this point almost half hemp and half marijuana, and we expect that to grow in favor of hemp.
Oh, really? Well, will the Safe Banking Act that passed the House of Representatives is now before the U.S. Senate, which would enable cannabis growers to sell their products interstate, to use normal banking means like any other business, that potentially could be a landmark decision.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, banking is one of the issues, certainly on the marijuana side. A lot of folks have trouble finding banking. They have issues with banks that decide to get out of the space and close accounts down. It is a political issue. McConnell was key in getting the federal legislation passed on the hemp side. He's not a marijuana fan, and so we think he's going to hesitate on trying to push that through the Senate. But who knows in the political environment that we're in now?
Right. And what about Colorado in terms of its regulation and its taxation and the like? Because California has been mired in bureaucracy and high taxes, and 80% of the $3 billion annual market is black market.
Yeah, California's definitely having its struggles, right? With the various regulatory bodies. I think they're really just trying to figure out how to get all their ducks in a row. It's kind of interesting. I was just having this conversation the other day with some colleagues. Colorado obviously started a certain way, as did Washington, for example. California kind of did its own thing. I mean, it looked at what other states had done in the past, but they kind of thought they, had a different way to do it. And I think they're realizing that there's a lot of challenges and a lot of issues, and it's having a significant effect on the market.
Yeah, adversely, because, as we say, 4/5 of the weed sold in California is not through a dispensary. So the projected $1 billion a year in revenue from legal marijuana is woefully short of that. Now, in Colorado, by contrast, how does that differ?
Yeah, I mean, Colorado is it's a mature market, right? The regulations, there's still obviously changes. We just recently had a number of changes in Colorado to make it more easy for investors to come into those businesses. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a strong legal market in Colorado, and most folks are buying their weed through dispensaries. I mean, I'm sure there's still a black market, but in Colorado, it's a whole different story than it is in California.
Yeah, well, can you elaborate on that, please? I mean, in terms of taxes, and like in California, 70% of municipalities are banning dispensaries in cultivation. So you've got limited access to product, and you've got massive taxes, which are encumbrances for businesses. Is it a more favorable business climate in Colorado for the cannabis cultivator, dispensary, grower, and the like?
Sure. Yes, the answer is yes for sure. Also at the federal level, there's still issues around 280E. Those hit businesses whether you're in Colorado or California. But it's definitely a more marijuana-friendly environment. It's obviously at the state level, it's legal, and then each city and municipality can decide how if they want to have it legal or not, and if they do, what parts. And so we have some municipalities that only have medical, some that have medical and rec, some that don't allow it at all. But in general, Colorado as a state is certainly marijuana business friendly.
Is it less politically charged in Colorado than it appears to be in California?
Yeah, like I said, we're over the hump, and with the governor that we have now, he's pro cannabis, and so for us, there's still various interest groups, and so when regulations need to be changed or updated, there's always debate. But having a governor that's marijuana friendly and having a population that's becoming more educated on cannabis and in understanding and what it can do, and also obviously there's huge tax benefits to the state.
Yeah, and the money that the states are garnering is going a long way to break some of those psychological barriers of resistance, one would imagine.
Yeah, for sure, right? And when people see that money's flowing to schools and it's helping with their kids and better education and all that, it's certainly helpful. The thing that I find interesting and now that CBD is around, I think when you talk about marijuana, there's a lot of folks that still don't quite get it or are opposed to it. Now that we have hemp-derived CBD products that are kind of main stage, we have a lot of folks that would never touch marijuana, but they're like, what's this hemp CBD thing? And so it's almost like they're easing in on the hemp-derived CBD side, which also helps get them educated and to understand the marijuana side more. Yeah,
breaking down some barriers, too. Now, you mentioned that your law firm, the largest cannabis firm, with the focus on cannabis. What about in Latin America? I don't know if you speak collectively. I know Colombia has legalized, and other nations as well. Ecuador.
Colombia, Ecuador as well. We actually have attorneys in Colombia and Ecuador, in Mexico, in Uruguay, and we're soon to have folks in Peru and Brazil. We see huge opportunity in Latin America. Obviously, each country has its own issues with regard to how they're regulating it. Latin America in general is they're against marijuana. And so what they're really trying to do is, again, it's an education component, but also hemp is a big deal. I was just down in Ecuador in December, and I met with two of the key cannabis attorneys in Ecuador, and they're literally helping the government understand medicinal marijuana, but even more so hemp. And so they're about to pass the equivalent of the USDA regs for the cultivation of hemp. So they're making that progress, but now they don't know what to do. Where do you get the seeds? How do you grow it? How do you process it? But there's definitely a lot of exciting things happening in Latin America.
Yeah, now with entrepreneurs struggling here in California because of the aforementioned taxes and encumbrances on the bureaucracy, how is it more favorable for investors to look to Latin America or to Colorado or to Canada? And they've struggled too, even with the legalization.
Sure. It's almost like it's kind of interesting because I think in California there's definitely struggles, right? But the thing is, there's all these other states that are bringing programs up, whether it's on the marijuana side or on the hemp side, and so there's still huge opportunities in the U.S. And so just because maybe California is struggling, it doesn't mean you need to run to Latin America or Canada. Canada has its own issues. Capital's dried up there as well. There's a lot of producers. Margins are getting squeezed. Looking at states in the U.S. that are in the earlier stages of adopting either marijuana and or hemp, there's still huge opportunities to invest. Look at Colorado, right? The folks that came in early in Colorado did it right. They've done well, and so there's still tons of states where there's opportunity.
And how about the European experience?
Same, Europe's a whole different thing, right? The way they treat certainly medical cannabis, and there are a lot of folks that are looking to leverage the European market because medicine's like a pharma drug over there, right? It's health insurance pays for it, where it's legal, and so it's a lot different regulatory scheme and mindset than here in the U.S. So yeah, there's certainly opportunities in Europe.
Are there strong lobby groups in the countries we just mentioned and here in California and elsewhere that are working to stem the tide or change the tide of the negative perception of cannabis, and whether it be banking or legalization nationally or the like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge education component, right? And so, there are significant lobbying groups that are, are really, if nothing else, trying to educate legislators just to get them to understand, even on the marijuana side, this is what it's about. Yeah, people use it to have fun, but also there's arguably huge medical benefits. A lot of folks are getting medical relief from medical marijuana. But even on the hemp side, just getting people to understand hemp. California CBD is a challenge right now, but they're working on that. Mm-hmm. So whether it's California or all these other states, there's definitely folks that are pushing to get legislators to really understand the plant, what it's about, and what it can do.
Now, do you work more on the corporate and state and national level, or do you also work to help expunge the drug convictions of marijuana offenders who are now in prison?
We're obviously the leading global cannabis law firm, which by that I mean both marijuana and hemp. But we're a full service business law firm. So we do corporate securities, M&A, private equities, intellectual property, tax. We're not a criminal defense firm. Mm-hmm. So we don't deal with in terms of criminal record expungements. We're definitely more of a corporate business focused law firm.
Mm-hmm. And Michigan, Illinois have just recently legalized recreational adult use for marijuana. New Jersey and New York could be on the horizon soon. Do you see this burgeoning nationwide, or is it still hit or miss?
There's certainly a momentum, right? I mean, as they say, the train's left the station, and every year we get a handful of states that come on board, and so it'll take time. But once we get a critical mass, then I think they'll start feeling it at the federal level and work to hopefully legalize it at that level.
Yeah, and I would think that if there is a national legalization of marijuana in the U.S., the prospects for international growth with trade of the best cannabis in the world from California and the like, that the financial impetus could drive that in a stronger way than it has to this point. One would think, looking at the global reach.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Right, and certainly there's the marijuana side, and so as if it becomes federally legal in the U.S., I mean, it certainly opens up huge doors. But then, even more importantly, and what we focus on, we certainly focus on marijuana, but the hemp opportunities, right? I mean, we're seeing CBD as a huge opportunity. Lots of our clients are they want to manufacture CBD products and ship them overseas, so we work through a lot of import-export issues. But people don't realize that there's again arguably 30,000 other uses for hemp, and so the opportunity to manufacture those products. I mean, grow hemp plants that are made to turn into shirts or bottles or houses or car doors, and all the technology that has to be developed along with that. I mean, those are huge opportunities. It almost dwarfs. I mean, it certainly dwarfs marijuana.
Right.
And so we're all in on hemp, and even beyond just CBD, because there's so much more to do with that plant.
Well, hemp could be the game changer that could carry cannabis with it. If we want to contact you, or our listeners want to know more about your law firm, if they may have a need for your services?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me. Again, it's Brent Johnson, CEO of Hoban Law Group. My email is brent@hoban.law, BRENT @Hoban.law, LAW. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Rich Walkoff on the W420 Radio Network.
W420radionetwork.com.